What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update for you guys. And there's been quite an interesting article from Sammy Mockbell yesterday surrounding Antonio Conte and the feeling between the players and stuff like that. Well, let's get into it and then we can react to it. But there's quite a bit to get through in this segment. But let's get into it. And it starts off saying, among the squad, there was a sense that performance and results have been hampered by Conte's rigid and defensive tactics. When senior players reported back to Conte after the crisis talks, they pleaded with him to release the shackles and be more expansive in their attacking play. By January, there had been a boardroom shift. Tottenham were no longer pining for Conte to extend his contract. The hierarchy grew tired of Conte's public jabs at the club's ambition and exasperated by the narrative that it was Conte who would decide if he would leave in the summer. Towards the end of January, Antonio Conte gathered his Tottenham players at the club's Enfield headquarters for a heart-to-heart. As the final players arrived, Conte walked out telling his players he wanted them to find the solution to their wretched form. Conte's relationship with Levy was so strained that Paratici was effectively acting as a go-to between the two during the final months of the head coach's tenure. Conte often had the players run 2 kilometres before matches. Players wouldn't dare moan in the earshot of Conte, but privately they were baffled. The team finished in the top 4 last season, but even then there were trust issues due to Conte's concerns. Issues due to Conte's concerns wanted the PSG job, and also his intermediaries was making no secret of it. So it seemed as though things were not all right for a long time here with Conte.
Seems so, and I guess you could tell that on the pitch, to be honest. As much as the results weren't disastrous, the performances lacked energy. We've seen that many times this season. How many times this season did we see Spurs fall behind and then having to rescue the situation in the second half, when when the shackles were let off the team, maybe that was the case, and that's maybe what a lot of the players were complaining about. But these are obviously, when you bring in a manager like Antonio Conte, you know he's going to be very focused on being very solid defensively, and that's how he's won a lot of his trophies at previous clubs. So obviously I understand the players maybe want to play a different way, especially after they had 18 months of Jose Mourinho and they've had 4 months of Nuno Espirito Santo. You would have thought maybe they want to play a certain way, but they did seem to buy into it in when he first came, though. So I don't understand what changed from those first original 6 months to the second to this season, where all of a sudden it all becomes too defensive for this team. Like, why all of a sudden, when we're winning 4-0, 5-0 and 5-1 last season and everyone's having a great time, we're getting top 4? What changes now to all of a sudden the players saying actually it's too defensive?
I don't understand.
My
understanding towards the back end of last season is that all the players were completely singing off the same hymn sheet. Everyone was behind Conte. The football was good. We were winning games. Went on such a good run to get that Champions League spot right at the end of the season. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. We did hear, and we have heard from other clubs, that Conte just gets too intense and you can't last too long under Conte. Maybe that plays into it. Maybe these players couldn't last as long as other players at other clubs, and it was like the fuse was even shorter because of what they had to go through under Jose Mourinho.
In terms of Conte making the players run 2K before games and things like that, well, what I would say is maybe, look, I don't know why he would do that, what the reason is. It sounds a bit ridiculous, to be honest, and that I can understand why the players find that bizarre. But to be fair, we do seem to finish games quite well. We do seem to be one of the fitter teams in the Premier League. The amount of times we've been able to score goals late and finish stronger.
That's only if we have a poor first half, though.
Yeah, I guess that's also true. But I do believe the fitness of the team was one of the stronger elements of it under Conte. I do think he got us really fit. So I don't know why he made them do it before. It does seem a bit ridiculous. Us
really fit, though, when we can only play for 45 minutes in a game. Like, it's either the first half or the second half. When it's the second half, yeah, we can have those late comebacks, but when we play well in the first half, we don't play well in the second half. So are we actually one of the fittest teams in the league when we can only play for 45 minutes?
Yeah, maybe not. all I would say is I think more often than not we finish games strongly. So that's the only defense I'd have of that. But it does seem a bit ridiculous that he would make us run 2K before games. I don't know if that means on the day or the day before. I'm not sure what specifically that means. But obviously, if the players were complaining
on the day of the game, yeah.
From your understanding, why?
Just from reading the article, it said before matches. I mean, I'm sure if it was the day before matches, they would say the day before matches, not before the game.
Then I think that's a bit ridiculous. Why do that? Why not try and keep them as fresh as possible for the game?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I know. Doesn't make sense at all. But with all this stuff coming out, it makes even more sense that Conte needed to go, to be honest. We've got some quotes from Dejan Kulusevski, obviously Conte's first signing at Spurs. And he says it's not, he's talking about Conte and the decision for the club to sack him. And it says, it's not for me to decide. Now the club have made this decision because they think it's best. And we, the players, stand behind that. I always sad when a player you work with and have grown close to has to leave, but life goes on and you just have to move on. We have 10 games left now and we have to do our best to reach the top 4. He has been very important. I have learned a lot from him and I will always remember him. But right now we have his assistant, who I know very well. Then we'll see who comes in next season. But I enjoy the city and the club very much. I mean, he says he's learned a lot from Conte, but it doesn't seem like he's going to miss him too much, to be honest. And it seems as though, you know, him saying the players completely stand behind that decision. I guess they have to stand by it because they're a player of the club. But in my personal opinion, I think it's so telling when you're looking at the stuff going around social media right now. No Spurs player has come out and wished Antonio Conte his best wishes like they did for Jose, like some of them did for Nuno, and all of them did for Pochettino. And also no one, not even one Spurs player even liked that post, even just hit that like button on that post of Antonio Conte yesterday.
That probably tells the story of a complete breakdown in relationships between Conte and the players.
Not one player, not one.
Yeah, I mean, which is surprising considering that we in terms of results anyway, we're still in the top 4 somehow. So the fact that there seems to be a complete breakdown in relationship between players and Conte, obviously Conte has to take responsibility for that, no doubt about it. You have to make sure the players are on side. That's part of your job. And the fact that he's allowed it to get to this situation is definitely telling of the volatile nature of Conte. I think that when he's under other squads and other teams, when obviously he's won, maybe they're more stronger, they've got stronger mentalities and they've obviously won trophies under him, maybe they've got that more of a bond. But he's kind of coming here expecting something, and he's been getting something else, and that's led to a real fractious relationship between him and the players, where his expectations are nowhere near what's possible from this squad. And it looks as though that fractious relationship has got to the boiling point where he continuously blames the players for the shortcomings of the team, and they're getting sick of it, clearly,
and they're blaming him,
and they're blaming him for his tactics and all these things. And looks like that's the situation at the moment.
But it's mad to me, like a player like Harry Kane, with the mentality that he has, you know, he is always the first one to come out, thank Jose. He put a comment out for Nuno. Obviously he was there for Poch as well. Even Harry Kane hasn't got involved in wishing Antonio Conte his best wishes. And we were saying, weren't we, before all this news came out, that Harry Kane was probably one of the ones behind Conte.
You would have thought so. I mean, just logically, you would the way he's been playing under Conte, and you know, you saw in that in the dressing room after he got the all-time top goal scorer. You know, he was talking to Conte. They seemed to be quite close. The fact that Conte got him playing, you know, when Nuno was when he was going nowhere under Nuno, he couldn't hit a barn door, and then Conte comes in and reinvigorated him. So he must have had a good relationship at some point. But then Sam Muckbell does say, you know, some of the senior players would have one of the ones saying, you know, Conte, you need to let the shackles off, and maybe he was part of that, and maybe that was also part of the problem. Well, once you lose Harry Kane support, then you're definitely got nothing. We don't know if he did, but the fact that he didn't say, he hasn't come out and thanked Conte, Definitely, like
telling.
Kane is first for all these things, especially as a representative of the club, and the fact that he always has a good relationship with all his coaches. He's always first to thank his coaches. So the fact that he hasn't said anything is a bit peculiar, I have to say.
Yeah. All right, let's move on and let's talk about that manager situation once again, starting off with Julian Nagelsmann, as Florian Plettenberg says that Nagelsmann is on Chelsea's shortlist should Graham Potter be dismissed by the end of the season. Tottenham are also interested in Nagelsmann, but he is unlikely to take a new job immediately. A quick decision is not expected. Tottenham are definitely interested in Nagelsmann. There has already been casual request, but no concrete talks or negotiations. Been told it's unlikely that he replaces Conte immediately. Gary Jacobs says Tottenham have made contact with Nagelsmann and his representative. Nagelsmann wants to weigh up his options before the end of the season, as multiple jobs will be available. He wants to know the club's strategies and potential transfers. Sammy Mockbell says that Daniel Levy wants to know whether Nagelsmann is open to taking over at Tottenham before he decides who to chase as Conte's replacement. Levy has already started trying to determine the chances of successfully enticing Nagelsmann to Tottenham, but there is some hope that the German is ready to listen to what Tottenham have to offer. Ernest Tanner, who is a close friend of Nagelsmann, says that Real Madrid will certainly be an option for Julian, but in terms of his language and interests, I see the Premier League rather as the next and logical step for Julian. Christian Falk says that Nagelsmann wants to take a break until the summer to decide. A build out in Germany is saying that Nagelsmann has decided he will not be taking a job in England immediately. He wants to take time to reflect, learn from his painful sacking from Bayern Munich before starting a new job. And finally, Dan Kilpatrick says that Tottenham's pursuit of Nagelsmann is complicated by the German's desire for a break before deciding his next job. Daniel Levy wants to begin the process of finding Conte's successor immediately to avoid a repeat of the chaos which was the summer of 2021.
And just to put also in that article, it says Spurs sources have played down reports from Germany that they have already made contact with Nagelsmann's representatives. So I guess they would say that, wouldn't they? Though they're not going to say yeah we have then and have Nagelsmann kind of reject them. So they're always going to do it. I reckon they probably have. Granted, because of other reports saying they have. That's what I would assume. I'm glad that we're kind of getting ahead of it, because you, as Dan KP says, we don't want a repeat of 2021. That was like the worst thing ever, pretty much. I've never been more embarrassed, like honestly, being a Tottenham fan, than that managerial merry-go-round mess that was the summer of 2021, where we were literally getting rejected left, right, and centre by anyone who could reject us. Did reject us pretty much,
and the ones that did accept us, we just threw them away.
Yeah, pretty much. And exactly. Fonseca, we bungled that because we let go of him last minute. Gattuso, there was a social media campaign. Nuno, obviously, he was our 8th choice, which we actually ruled out right at the beginning of the summer because he didn't fit Tottenham, and then we ended up getting him anyway right at the end of the summer. So I'm glad that we're going for it now, but I think when it comes to someone like Nagelsmann, if he's only willing to make a decision in the summer, I don't think it's one you wait around for if there's another option. But if there's no other option that's as good a fit as him, then I think you have to wait and you have to just see it out. The question is, if it is true that he wants Champions League, that he is less likely to take the job without Champions League football, then it becomes a tricky situation, because it doesn't look like we're going to be very likely to get it with Mason and Stellini in charge. We have to just hope and pray they can pull out the bag from now to the end of the season. But
you've got to look at it like, what big Champions League jobs apart from Real Madrid are going to be coming around soon? I mean,
PSG.
Yeah, maybe. PSG potentially. Does he want to go to PSG? I don't know. But when you're looking specifically in the Premier League, look, Chelsea probably not going to have Champions League football next year, and Tottenham and Chelsea are probably the most likely jobs to be going in the summer. So if you are looking to go into the Premier League, I don't think there's many options there.
That's also true. And I do think him being 35, I think Tottenham represents a good opportunity for him at this point of his career, in my opinion. I think he's been to Bayern Munich now. He's had the shiny light. I think, to be honest, he took it too early. That reading about his time at Bayern Munich, and it seems as though he didn't really command the respect of the dressing room, and maybe it's a lot of it is to do with how young he is. And imagine you're Neuer or you're Thomas Müller and you're veterans of the game and you've won everything, and then you've got this the guy who's like 5 years younger than you coming in trying to tell you what to do and tell you how football should be played. Obviously, he's going to rub you the wrong way.
Pitch on some skateboard and
Yeah.
trying all these crazy ideas that they've never seen before.
And I think from that point of view, not to say that Neuer and Müller are right, but obviously it represents football progressing past you, doesn't it? When you have that staring in your face, you've got a 35-year-old manager trying to command your respect and tell you how football should be played, and you're sitting there having all your trophies and all your experience, and you're probably feeling like it's football moving beyond me, and that's obviously going to cause a fractious relationship between them, those experienced players and people like Nagelsmann. So I think when you bring in a manager like that, you should be giving him like players who are willing to buy into him, and obviously people like Neuer and Müller and things like that are probably less likely to. So it's always going to cause that kind of fractious.
They brought in Nagelsmann because it's kind of like the end of the cycle at Bayern Munich. There's been a lot of players that need to like be refreshed, need to move on, and I think they brought in Nagelsmann to do that. But clearly they didn't give him enough time because that whole squad needed to be refreshed.
You don't hire a 33. He was 33 when he got hired. You don't hire a 33-year-old and give him 18 months. That makes no sense, especially when you sack him, you're still a point behind in the league and you're winning 8 out of 8 in the Champions League. So clearly he's not like a disaster. They've had managers. I remember Niko Kovac. They had him for like 18 months, but they were literally nowhere in the league, and they appointed Hansi Flick and he won the Champions League. So obviously they've done it, but they've got previous for doing that. But I think when you hire a manager Nagelsmann at his age, you either give him many years to reshape the squad and build something, or there's no point of giving him the job, in my opinion. A bit like Chelsea or Potter. Like if you're appointing a manager like Potter, you don't sack him after a few months. You have to give him time to build, otherwise there's no point of hiring him. Yeah. So I think Bayern, in my opinion, panicked. And I think he's the perfect manager for Tottenham. I think we will give him time. I think I hope so anyway. But I'd like to believe that if we're hiring someone like him, he would get time and patience to build something at Tottenham. And I think that's what he needs right now. I don't think he needs another job like Madrid or PSG, where it's like either you perform right now or you're out the door. I think he needs a job where he's going to be allowed patience to breathe and build something in his image and given time. And I think Tottenham right now, that's what Tottenham need.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of a wrong fit, Nagelsmann and Bayern, a bit like Conte and Spurs, but the other way around, pretty much. And I think Conte was probably a good fit for Bayern Munich, and Nagelsmann a really good fit for Spurs. So a manager swap should have been done. But anyway, I think Tuchel's a very good fit for Bayern Munich, and I think he'll do very well there.
But yeah, let's just see what happens in the summer. The only problem is if he gets distracted by the big lights of Madrid. They're very distracting lights. That's when Madrid come calling, most managers don't say no. You know what I mean? Well, that's the big question mark, isn't it?
Well, talking on Real Madrid, we've got a Maurizio Pochettino update as well. Relevo are saying that Maurizio Pochettino is in pole position to become the next Real Madrid manager, and Sammy Mockbell saying that Maurizio Pochettino's return to Tottenham is rated as doubtful. The news coming out the last couple of days, it seems as though Spurs would like to focus on different targets before Maurizio Pochettino.
I just think if we really wanted him, he'd be our manager by now. I think we probably would have started talking to him before we sacked Conte, and I think we would have had him in place by the time Conte was sacked. It's all well and good people saying Pochettino's waiting until the summer, but I believe he would come back to Spurs if we really push for him. And if we said to Poch, look, come now and be our manager again, and we'll give you time, and we want you back, I think he would come. And I think that right now there clearly are doubts whether he's really the right man to be the next manager of Tottenham, and that's why we're not seeing him. So if there are doubts, then I think it's better to pursue people that you're sure about. And I don't think you should be going for a manager that you're not sure about, as much as I think he could be a good fit for us. What
do you reckon those doubts are down to?
Just maybe the fact that why it went wrong at the end. There are still a lot of players at the club where it went wrong at the end for him, and not that many, but there's still a few. There's still a decent core, like about 5, 6 or 7, aren't there?
But I mean, the majority of them need to go anyway, don't they?
100% they need to go.
The Dyers, the Sessegnons, Ndombele, Lo Celso, you want all of them gone. I mean, the only ones is Kane and Son, which you probably don't mind having around still.
Yeah, but that's our opinion, isn't it? Like, I don't know what the club's opinion is on all those things. It definitely should be the same. I agree. For me, there aren't many doubts in bringing him back. I think that The only doubts are, should you go back to an old manager? I guess that's the only doubt, where a lot of people say you shouldn't, but I don't see a problem with someone like Pochettino, who's got progressive tactics, knows the club. I personally would really like him back at Tottenham, but clearly they're not sure about it
since being here as well. So I would love him to return, but Nagelsmann would be my first choice. Look, let's move on and talk about some other managers who are on the short list. Zinedine Zidane. Sky Italia saying that Zinedine Zidane is also on Tottenham's short list. I mean, if Zinedine Zidane was to come in, he'd be definitely out the door within a year.
100%. Yeah, I don't know if it would last year. I just get a feeling. Not to say he's a bad manager. Obviously, he did brilliant at Real Madrid, although Real Madrid's the only manager's job he's had. But that's very telling as well, because he's always had like a world-class squad to choose from. Obviously, he's won the three-peat, didn't he? He won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, or 2, at least 2. I think it was 3. I think he was manager of all 3. He won 3 Champions Leagues in a row.
Unless Ancelotti won one of them.
He did win one of them, but I think he won 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. Yeah, he won 3 in a row, because Ancelotti won 13-14. So I think Zidane, obviously, he's proven his managerial credentials, because I don't think you do that just by luck. Even though you have a great squad to pick from, I don't think you can win 3 in a row just having a good squad. You have to have something about you from a managerial standpoint to do that. But will he just come into Tottenham and be extremely frustrated that he had Kroos and Modric in his prime, and now he's got to deal with like Højbjerg and Dyer and all these people like who are nowhere near that level? Like, I don't see him coming here and wanting to build something and wanting to improve Tottenham. I just think he would come in, demand, like, be high, like the demands you can make out of that Madrid squad are one thing, and he can make those demands and they could fulfill them, but that's just a different ball game to Tottenham, and I just don't think it's the right fit at all.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, I don't see it as a starter, to be honest. Next up, Christophe Galtier of PSG. Dan Kilpatrick saying that Galtier is under consideration by Tottenham, and if he is going to lose his job at PSG this summer, he definitely should be one that we should be looking at.
In a way, yeah, 100%. Because if you look at his career, he seems to be a manager. I know he was only at Nice for 1 season. He's only been at
won the league though.
No, he didn't win the Nice. Won it at Lille. But then he moved from Lille to Nice, and he only lasted 1. He was only there for 1 season, only because he went to PSG this season. He got snapped up by PSG. But I think that he's actually a manager who tends to stay at clubs for a long time. He was at Saint Etienne for a long time, and actually built a side there, although they didn't win things. I think they might have won 1 cup actually, but he built a very solid team at Saint Etienne, consistent top 10 finishes, was able to get I think he got European football once for them, and then he was there for about 7 or 8 years. Then he went to Lille, and he built a really good team at Lille for a number of years. Won Liga Manager of the Year 3 times, and ended up winning the league at Lille as well. So he was there for I think 4 or 5 years, and then obviously went to Nice. Was only there for a year because PSG came calling. But he is a type of manager who will stick around and try and build something at your team. The only question mark is, does he play the football that we want him to play? Because I've heard that his football is not the most expansive out there compared to someone like Nagelsmann, but he's definitely a manager who you can trust to build something, who can trust to stay, be patient with and stay there a long time. But he hasn't really managed outside of France, so that's another consideration.
Yeah, he hasn't, but I mean, to win the league with Lille is an unbelievable achievement, to be honest.
Especially after being there for a few years and then building a side and then winning the league. It's very impressive.
I think he definitely should be one that we should be looking at, but
and he plays the back 3, I think.
Yeah, but he shouldn't be like in the top. I would prefer obviously Nagelsmann, Poch, or even Gallardo to Galtier, but I think he should definitely be in the conversation though.
Yeah, I think so. He's going to be available. I think he's a very good coach, really good coach, and I think he could be a good fit for Tottenham in a way. But the only question mark is about Spurs DNA, the football. Is he the right fit for that? I'm not 100% sure.
Spurs DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to the last one. We brought you the story yesterday that Emerson is set for surgery. And we had word from Spurs official today. They say we can confirm that Emerson Royal has suffered a a meniscus injury to his left knee while on international duty with Brazil last week. The defender will undergo surgery before his rehabilitation with our medical staff. We're all behind you, Emerson Royale. And Ali Gold followed up on that and says that Emerson has now flown to Brazil to have the operation on his knee, expected to take place on Thursday. So we wish you a speedy recovery, and let's just hope we can see you again this season.
Yeah, seems unlikely, but it's a big blow for him, and obviously in good form. And look, just being called up to Brazil and starting, and so the fact that he's got a cap for Brazil and it was cut short through this injury must be a massive blow for him. So hopefully in speedy recovery, but good opportunity for Porro to really find himself in the Premier League now.
Absolutely. So that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts regarding any of the news stories we've brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on you Spurs.